welcome back to yet another edition of Baseball for Maniacs. I'm not sure if you guys know this or not, if you couldn't tell. Owen's a Phillies fan, and I am a Red Sox fan. So I don't think he and I have actually genuinely had the discussion of whose like all-timer lineup would be better. So we had this idea that we were gonna build all-time lineups for his respective Phillies. Well, he built his for the Phillies, and I built mine for the Red Sox. The way we got a lineup 1 through 9. It's all the positions except pitcher in the lineup with a DH, and then we got three starters and a closer. Uh, Obviously, these franchises have legendary players. Not every single one of them can make the all-time lineup or the all-time roster. So, oh, and I don't know about you, but I got a couple honorable mentions to get off my chest before we get into this lineup.
Let me know. I got some of mine as well.
So, number one might be a little controversial that he's not in here, but Carl Yastrzemski. Yaz is not in my all-time lineup. The outfield is incredibly deep when you think about it all time for the Red Sox, which is why also 2 and 3 are Jim Rice and Dwight Evans. Those guys did not find space in my lineup. That's just, it's kind of crazy to say that because they're Red Sox legends, but I think that the guys I have in there are just that much better. Number 4 is kind of an obvious one. JD Martinez. I was really flip flopping the idea of putting Poppy at first and then having JD DHing, but in my conscience, I just couldn't do that. JD had two miraculous seasons with the Red Sox, and I argued that he should have won the MVP in 2018 over Mookie, but the fact that I had two guys in the MVP category was mind-boggling to me. I have an answer for that one too. I saw your face. Basically, I had never seen a DH do what JD did at that point in time. JD kind of opened the door for a DH to be an incredibly valuable part of your lineup. Quite frankly, I think the discussions about full time DHs started because JD Martinez hit 330 and had 46 home runs from the DH position. So that's why I feel the way I do about JD Martinez. I love JD Martinez. He had two amazing stretches. Obviously, Mookie was the right pick for MVP. I'm not complaining, but I did have a few discussions where I was like, JD honestly could do it, but that's life. And the number 5, I just put old school because the Red Sox have so many old school guys that were just like from the 1910s and the 1920s that were just god tier. Cy Young was a Red Sox. Tris Speaker was a Red Sox. Babe Ruth was a Red Sox. Those guys aren't in my lineup. They're not in my rotation. Yeah, I just number 5. I couldn't really list a specific guy, so I just went old school.
Okay, valid. I didn't go the 1 through 5. I just got a bunch of names because obviously I'm a Phillies fan and I love these guys to death. And I felt bad leaving them off, but this is all time, so obviously you're gonna have a few people that get left off. My
Dude,
number, yeah,
I had like 13 names that I could have put on this honorable mention. I cut it down to 5.
dude. Our next episode we should do our top 50 that didn't make the list,
I,
because that's how many add on this list. Um, but I got Jim Tomei, freaking stud, came to Philadelphia. He had to be shipped out of town when Ryan Howard came in, rightfully so. Cole Hamels is not in my rotation. I thought about putting him on heavily because what he did in the 2008 postseason, and he loved winners, and he's a winner. But the other three are just unbelievable. Cliff Lee, same thing. The 09 Cliff Lee playoff run, I still think about that daily, like unfreaking believable. Larry Boa, Bobby Abreu, and I really wanted to put Bobby Abreu in the lineup, but I couldn't. But
Bobby
yeah,
didn't make it.
Bobby didn't, and it'll be valid why he didn't. But I implore all Phillies fans, go watch Bobby Abreu highlights. The way that man took an at bat. If you're a kid looking on who to replicate your approach at the plate, look at Bobby Abreu. But he didn't make the list. Darren Dalton didn't make the list at catcher. Shane Victorino, and then this guy, I didn't. He's good. He's a really good Philly. I don't know if he's worth an honorable mention, but he is for me because he was my favorite Philly growing up. It's Jason Worth. I love Jason Worth, but I could not justify putting him on the list.
You know what? I'll allow that. I did find the other honorable mentions, so I'll just rattle those off real quick. I won't do any explanations behind them, but here are the guys that won't be featured in my all-timer lineup: Jacoby Ellsbury, John Lester, David Price, Manny Ramirez, Babe Ruth, Tris Speaker, Carl Yastrzemski, Jim Rice, Jason Varitek, Kevin Youkilis, Mike Lowell, and Xander Bogarts.
We love those guys. I mean, we could probably do it. If we ever want to get like crazy with it, like top 100 Philly, top Sox, because we could come up with that list, and it wouldn't be hard. It would just be time consuming.
The only thing that might be a pain in the ass would be just filling out, like, just getting bullpen guys in there, because I don't know about you. Actually, no, I do. I do know about you. I have these incredibly niche players of mine that will definitely sneak into like my top five. Like, you can't keep Clay Buchholz out of my top three Red Sox of all time, just for my own personal feelings about Clay Buchholz. I love that guy to the ends of the earth. Clay Buchholz might be one of my favorite Red Sox pitchers to ever do it.
Antonio Bastardo. That's all I'm gonna say with that. Uh, but let's get into our rotation. So I'm gonna list my three, and then Ryan's gonna list his three. So number one, I got Steve Carlton. I don't think that's a debate. I mean, that dude. I think there's a stat where the Phillies won 59 games one year. Steve Carlton won 27 of them. That's unfreaking seen. Like he's a legend. I don't think anyone's going to disagree there. My two and three, I think people will disagree with. So number two, I got Zach Wheeler, and number three, I got Roy Halladay. I've gotten into this debate in a couple posts on Instagram, and I think it kind of stems to everyone on this list, it's Phillies related. So I look at your Phillies career and I compare and contrast. Roy Halladay is a much better pitcher, Zach Wheeler, all time. That's not a discussion. But Roy Halladay had two phenomenal years, 2010, 2011. I'll never forget when he threw the no hitter. Ruiz at his knees throws it. Roy Halladay's throwing a no hitter. Perfect game in Miami. I actually know a buddy of mine. His dad went to the game in Miami, and we were at a bar one time, and he's like, "Hey, let me just show you something real quick." And he pulls out a physical ticket of the Marlins versus Phillies May 29, 2010 game. That was freaking incredible. Um, but Zach Wheeler, he's been phenomenal every single year. 2020, 2021, 22, 23, 24. He was really good in 25. He just got his season cut short with the injury. And then the playoffs, man. Zach Wheeler is one of the best postseason pitchers of all time. What he did in 2022, what he did in 2023, his one lone start in 2024, thanks to our beloved Phillies offense. And I was in attendance for that. It was a afternoon game. The shadows were insane. Zach Wheeler was dealing, but it was 1-0. I'm in the third deck saying to my buddy, who's not even a Phillies fan, he's just a fan of sports. He's like, "Why are you so nervous? You're winning." I'm like, just wait what happens. Wait what happens. And the bullpen blew it. So that's why I got Zach Wheeler number two and Roy Halladay number three. But if you want to have it flip flop the other way, two and three, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, me personally, if I'm doing an all-time Phillies, I got Doc at two. Doc's one of my favorite players all time, just in general. But I understand why Wheeler's up there and Doc's not. Doc had two great years, and then the rest he was above average to average.
Oh,
Wheeler's been the
he,
Wheeler. He's
he was bad. He was bad.
Can I be honest? One of my last memories of Roy Halladay was this is a very niche, odd memory, but he was pitching a game in Chicago, and it must have been like humid and muggy as hell in Chicago that day because he only went like 2 innings, and I had never seen like a jersey get soaked to the level of Doc Holliday's that day, and I didn't know that you could even sweat that much playing baseball. And then I played in like 102, and I was like, oh, all right, I get it now.
It makes sense.
Yeah, but going into my rotation now, those guys are all studs, but I think mine might edge it out just a little bit.
Okay.
So my number one, for obvious reasons, is Pedro Martinez. Pedro Martinez had two of the best pitching seasons back to back years when he was on the Red Sox. You couldn't deny him as the best pitcher in baseball, even if you wanted to. Pedro Martinez was the epitome of Boston baseball. Obviously, he had that weird stretch with the Yankees, but he bounced back and he was a huge part of the World Series run when we finally broke that curse and broke the streak. He wasn't there for super long. It felt like he was there forever. He wasn't there for like a super like 10 plus year period or anything, I don't believe, but Pedro means a lot to the city of Boston. And when he was a Red Sox, he was the best pitcher in baseball, and there's no denying that. The only other guy that you could probably argue next to him besides Randy Johnson was somebody who was in the same division as him, and that's Roger Clemens. He comes into my number two for the all-time Red Sox. Now I know.
Continue.
But look, the guy was just an overall tank. Even before this, I don't know how long he was doing steroids. If it was his whole career, then boo on you. But to my knowledge, he only really got caught when he was with the Yankees. So if that means anything to me, it just shows that the Yankees are no good, dirty cheats because they had A Rod and Roger Clemens on the same team. So what does that say about that culture? Bullshit, cheating culture. Yes, Owen.
I love how I raised my hand. But Roger Clemens, though, as much as I hate him, I don't hate him for the steroids thing because I don't think I know everyone else was doing it on the hitting side. So for that era of the steroid era, I don't blame anyone for if they did steroids or not. I just think he's a terrible person. And when this is a Yankees Mets moment, and I hate the Mets, but when Mike Piazza hit the comebacker and the bat came to him and he threw it at Mike Piazza, and he had the gall to say he thought it was the ball. Like, I like people that do stuff like that but own it. I think Roger Clemens is a loser. He's a great pitcher, but that's my Roger Clemens rant for the episode.
I mean, yeah, sure, prime douchebag, but he'll still put up 19 Ks on your head. You're not getting a hit off him and you're not scoring off him. You don't have to like him, but what you're going to have to do is respect his dominance because there wasn't much you could do when the Rocket was on the hill.
Yeah.
And now my number three. This was a huge toss up for me because I didn't know whether I wanted to go with like one of the homegrown guys, like I'm talking John Lester or Clay Buchholz. Maybe I wanted to go with one of the big free agent signings like David Price. But I went with a trade acquisition who was a 300 strikeout pitcher for an entire season, which you don't see as much as you would think. Chris Sale slides in my number three slot. Chris Chris Sale was the best left-handed pitcher in baseball from about like 2016 till about 2020, 2021. And you cannot and will not change my mind on that. You couldn't, his slider was wipeout. A lefty hitting 97, 98, sometimes even touching 100. You don't see that unless it's out of the bullpen, and he's doing it for 7 innings a game. This guy's arm slot was one of the weirdest I've ever seen in my entire life. It looked like it hurt every time he threw the ball. Honestly, it just like his throwing motion was so weird and so funky. But it worked. And Chris Sale was elite. He was a top five pitcher in all of baseball for a good period of time when he was on the Red Sox. And the Red Sox went ahead and did it again with the White Sox. We stole their next left-handed ace. We got Garrett Crochet now. So up yours, White Sox fans. But anyway, Chris Sale was an all-time Red Sox pitcher. He helped us get a ring. He was a part of that best team in all of baseball. I think he should have won the Cy Young that year. I think he was up against Kluber, and Kluber got the Cy Young. I think it might have been the year after, actually, the year he had 300 Ks. It was one of those years he had 300 Ks that I think Kluber got the Cy Young over him. BS in my opinion. But either way, that's why I'm not a voter. I'm very biased. But yeah, Chris Sale slides in just over guys like John Lester and Clay Buchholz and David Price. It was a pretty tough decision, but I mean, you can't deny Chris Sale.
Yeah, no, I like that list too. And then basically, I mean, Pedro, there's no discussion. He's obviously number one. And then what Chris Sale did for you guys in the playoffs, it makes so much sense. Now let's get into the lineup. So I constructed this how I would do like a lineup. They all played on the same team. This is very lefty heavy, but when you're that good, doesn't matter with splits. Yes, sir.
Who's your closer?
Oh, I'd save closer for last. Okay, cool. Let's get into the closer then. So I got Tug McGraw. Now, for some of the younger fans, are the people in this like our demographic that watches us would think Brad Lidge, right? And he's my honorable mention as a closer. But let's just compare their championship seasons because Brad Lidge in '08 was phenomenal. '09, he was Jordan Romano esque in '09. He was terrible. He had a 7.5 ERA, found in the playoffs just in time, but didn't do well against the Yankees. But Tug McGraw in 1980 had a 1.5 ERA. Brad Lidge had a 1.96 ERA. So, and they both won a championship and they both closed it out, right? So I give the edge to Tug McGraw, and I get it, Brad Lidge, perfect, whatever. But I don't want to be too biased because of where my fandom is in the timeline. So, and Tug McGraw did it with the Phillies for 10 years. So I don't really think it's a discussion between Tug McGraw and Brad Lidge. I love them both. I thank them for bringing us a championship, closing it out. But that's why I got Tug McGraw as my closer and Brad Lidge as my honorable mention.
You know, it was. I'm a little surprised that it's not Brad Lidge, and I'm a little surprised that it's not even because honestly, you could have been a jerk and slid Billy Wagner in there if you really wanted to, because he was a Philly. But
He was, but I like playoffs a little bit more. But he was legit.
so my closer is actually a Phillies legend in his own right as well, and a former teammate of Bryce Harper, but not on the Phillies. It was on the Nationals. I got Jonathan Papelbon closing out my games. You can't
Valid.
deny the dominance that Jonathan Papelbon had when he was the closer in Boston. Even when he took over Brad Lidge's job, when you guys had that four-headed monster with the Hamels, Lee, Holiday, and Oswalt, when you had Jonathan Papelbon closing out any sort of game that those guys started, you felt good about it. You felt the same way about it when he was over there in Boston. Clay had a good start through seven. Throw some jobber in there for the eighth. Hopefully he doesn't give up a run. Papelbon shuts the door. He was undeniable. He was a huge part of that World Series run in 2007, and the image of him just losing his mind after getting the game-winning K in the 2007 World Series against the Rockies. Jonathan Papelbon is another one of those certified douchebags. We saw the stuff with Bryce in Washington, and we've seen him on Twitter. This guy is an absolute troll, and I love it personally because he's always pissing off Yankee fans, and it's the funniest thing in the world to me. He actually lost a bet this last wild card season with the Red Sox losing to the Yankees, and his profile picture for like the entire like playoff run was the Yankees, and I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, you could have put Koji in here. He's an honorable mention of mine. You could have even put a guy like Aroldis Chapman, but you can't deny Papelbon. That's why he's my closer.
You know, Jonathan Papelbon is the all-time Philly save leader, right?
Is
Like
he really?
that's why I thought, dude, and I don't think it's even relatively close because he signed with us in 2012, and then we traded him in the last year of his deal to Washington with the infamous choking out Bryce Harper. I just didn't put him there because there was no playoff success. He We didn't really like him in Philly, maybe because he grabbed his um, adult parts to the Phillies fans, so I don't like that at all. But you can't deny Jonathan Papelbon was a all-time Phillies closer. He's just not going to be my number one, but I totally understand why he is for you at the Red Sox. And I'm a big fan of Jonathan Papelbon.
I feel like everybody
But
should
now
be.
let's
We
get,
all kind of need to have a guy like that.
especially closing games, like you want that guy to be a certified psychopath.
And
All right.
the
Now
best
let's
way to describe Papelbon was a psychopath. But yeah, let's get into these lineups.
Gotcha. So, like I said previously, I kind of went to this under the notion that if I was the manager and all these players were playing in the same game, how I would construct a lineup. Lefty heavy, but whatever, dude. If you're in this lineup, you can hit both sides of the pitching side. So, leading off, I got Jimmy Rollins at shortstop. I don't think that's any discussion. Second base, I got Chase Utley. Again, no discussion. Third base, Mike Schmidt, the best third baseman ever played baseball. Again, no discussion. First base, I got Ryan Howard. Um, I mean, what he did in that stretch from '06 to about 2012. Obviously, then he fell off the cliff after tearing his Achilles against the Cardinals. RIP. Was one of the most horrific things I've seen as a kid and to this day. And then DH, I got Kyle Schwarber. Um, just because obviously the DH was only implemented in 2022. Now with this lineup, you could have got kind of creative with maybe Bryce is the DH because he was a DH in 2022. Slide Bobby Abreu in there. I thought about doing that. I didn't do that. Number 6, I got Bryce Harper in right field. I know he's a first baseman now, but he was a right fielder for the Phillies from 19 to 2021 and the first week of 2022 before he tore his UCL. Um, and then number 7 is why Bobby Abreu is not on this list. And I think you will agree why I chose him and not Bobby Abreu. Dick Allen. Dick Allen's a Hall of Famer. And not that Bobby Abreu, I don't know his case for the Hall of Fame, but Dick Allen had a lifetime 912 OPS. I mean, you're making the Phillies all time lineup, especially if you're in Cooper Sound. And number 8, similar, Richie Asburn. I mean, if you got a section of Citizens Bank Park named after you, you're making this lineup. Ashburn Alley. And then catcher, which is the only, I guess, controversial pick, I got JT Realmuto. Now, people might say Darren Dalton, but I looked at the stats. Darren Dalton was a backup for 4 to 5 years before he got his full-time gig. Um, and I think Darren Dalton, I'm not sure if it was 92 or 93, one of those years, he led the league in RBIs. His peak, like that 1 year, is better than JT Realmuto's peak, but I like longevity. And if you look at the stats, JT Realmuto is just a better player. Now, this is funny because I'm like pissed off at JT because he's holding up the market, but I think the Phillies are like letting him do that. But he's going to make the all-time lineup, and he's batting ninth for me.
Yeah, honestly, I don't hate Dick Allen being in the lineup. I'm more surprised that Chooch isn't behind the plate for you, if anything.
I mean, I get it. World Series, love me some Carlos Ruiz, but JT's just a flat out much better player, and no disrespect to Carlos Ruiz.
I mean, you're not wrong, and that's a really solid lineup, but let's see how mine compares. Now, my 2, 3, and 4 guys, it's absolutely no question, but number 1, I had a little bit of debate on, and he's hitting leadoff for me. At third base, I got Wade Boggs. You could have picked a guy like Rafael Devers, but if you want to talk about like Rafi's power over Boggs, Boggs has 4 Silver Sluggers compared to Rafi's 2, and Wade Boggs has 5 batting titles on his career. So you can't deny how good of a player Wade Boggs was, even though a lot of people like to forget Wade Boggs as an all-time Sox player. Batting second and playing right field, I got Mookie Betts, the 2018 AL MVP. I don't think this is really a discussion. Again, obviously, guys like Jim Rice, Dwight Evans, you could have put there, even guys like Carl Yastrzemski, but Mookie Betts was unbelievably fun to watch. He made baseball so enjoyable as a Red Sox fan. There was nothing better than watching the homegrown guy become the best player in the world. And Mookie Betts was, without a doubt, the best player in baseball in that 2017 through like 2019 stretch. Even when he did kind of fall off the face of the earth in 2019, the guy was still putting up above average to good numbers. And Mookie Betts should still be a Red Sox, but because of what he did in his stint with us, he's batting second in this lineup. But right behind him, again, no questions, in my opinion, the greatest hitter to ever step into a batter's box, and that's Ted Williams. He went to war, came back, and still hit almost 400. This guy was a menace. If he played in today's baseball, I truly don't think he would have a problem. He's the splendid splinter. Ted Williams is the greatest to ever do it, in my humble opinion, hitting wise. I don't care about Pete Rose having the most hits of all time. I don't care about, I think it's Ty Cobb having the all time average list. It's Ted Williams, and there's no question about it, in my opinion. Cleaning all that up, batting fourth designated hitter, again, no question, David Ortiz. Do I need to say any more? The clutchest postseason hitter of all time, perhaps the greatest postseason hitter of all time. There's no denying David Ortiz, and he is the all time greatest designated hitter, possibly the all time greatest Red Sox if Ted Williams never existed. That's my cleanup guy. But right behind him, I got Jimmy Fox playing first base. You usually know him for the time he had for his athletics, but Jimmy Fox was an absolute stud for Boston. He was the man. And again, this is kind of where I had my dilemma. I could have put JD at the DH and Poppy at first base, but you know David Ortiz as a designated hitter. You don't know him as a first baseman. The same thing with Jimmy Fox. It's like Jimmy Fox is an all timer for a reason, and that's why I got to slot him in at 5. Number 6, playing center field might be slightly controversial, but I got Fred Lynn. Now, again, you could have put Jacoby Ellsbury at center field and had him leading off. You even could have slotted Mookie there. You could have put Jim Rice in there, too. But Fred Lynn in 1975, not only was he the rookie of the year, he was the MVP, and he has 124 career home runs for the Red Sox, which doesn't sound like too much, but when that happens in a span of 7 years, that's truly special. He's an unreal player and an unreal Red Sox, quite frankly, of all time. 7 playing shortstop. Again, I don't think this one's up for debate. Nomar Garcia Parra, my first favorite Red Sox of all time. He was the epitome of Red Sox baseball when we were in those like really bad, not we weren't even really bad, but those struggle years when we just couldn't be better than the Yankees, when we were just little brother at that point in time. Nomar was the face of the franchise. You can't deny Nomar's impact. He opened the door for the Red Sox to become the team that they eventually became. And catching, I got Carlton Fisk. You can't deny his greatness. He was one of the greatest to be behind the plate in Boston. You could have put Jason Varitek back there. Then that's pretty much it, in my opinion. There's not really maybe Mike Napoli. You could argue Jared Saltalamacchia, but I'd tell you to go take a long walk off a short pier if that was the case. Carlton Fisk is the greatest catcher in Red Sox history. There really isn't too much debate on that one. Has there really been too many great catchers coming through the Red Sox? Not really, but Jason Varitek could have very easily slotted in, big switch hit back. Huge part of that team. Still a huge part of the team now, actually. But Carlton Fisk, you're just that much better. And batting ninth, kind of like my second leadoff hitter. He was a rookie of the year. He was also an MVP. He's a 2-time champion, and he is only like 5'9", but when he stands on his rings, he's about 6'4". The greatest dirt dog player of all time, Dustin Pedroia. No debate, no arguing. I don't want to hear Bobby Dorr. I don't want to hear anybody else. Go argue with a tree. Dustin Pedroia is playing second base, and he's my second leadoff guy, batting ninth.
So that Dustin Pedroia 5'9" quote was tough. Like, it stands on his rings. He's 6'4". We should definitely clip that. Now, so here's what we're gonna get into. We're just gonna compare positions and give our opinion of, do I think the Phillies players better, or does Ryan think he's the Red Sox players better? On the old timers, you're gonna have to help me out with that and just kind of give me your honest opinion. I don't know some of your players with the Red Sox, but we'll just go position by position. So first off, who'd you have at shortstop again? Nomar Garciaparra?
I had I had Nomar Garcia Parra, yes.
Gotcha. So Jimmy Rollins versus Nomar. Oh God. So peak, I'll go Nomar. I'll be honest, because what he was doing in that short time was unbelievable. I'll give you Nomar. I'll give you Nomar over Jimmy Rollins.
I
So
do think it's a lot
number
closer
two,
than
I think.
people think it is, though. It's a lot closer than people think it is, though, between Nomar and Jimmy. Because I would have been okay giving it to Jimmy too, but I'll happily take a W for Nomar in that one because Jimmy was electric. I loved watching Jimmy play.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I'm a big guy on you at your absolute best versus the other guy at his absolute best. And I love me some Jimmy Rollins, but I'd give it to Nomar. Maybe that's me just being a nice guy, which I'm a pretty nice guy. But yeah, this is where I'm not going to be a nice guy. I got Chase Utley at second base over Dustin Pedroia. I think similar defensively. I think his peak was better. Rings, I think in baseball are the worst argument relatively to other sports. Obviously, NBA, NFL, they matter more. I think it's very close. I love me some Dustin Pedroia. Anytime I played the infield, I used his DP15 model with the A1K. For those of you guys who don't know that glove, all timer, all black. But I got Chase Utley slightly over Dustin Pedroia. Let Go at me.
I
Let
just
the wolves
can't
come at me.
I just can't. I can't agree with that. I can't do it. I love Chase Utley. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate him, but yeah, maybe rings don't matter when you're talking about baseball players. But even then, if you wanted to bring up the individuals, one of them has an MVP, and the other one also was a Rookie of the Year. And now my thing is again, Chase Utley, an all time great for a Philly. But when you think Chase Utley, most of the time you're really not thinking Phillies. You're thinking about the time he broke that guy's leg with his jaw. And he wasn't even on the Phillies for that. He
Well,
was a Dodger.
look, I get it. That's his signature moment. And let me just say this. It was a clean baseball slide. It was a winning baseball play. But Chase Utley is a Philly. His moments are meant with Philly. Obviously, I wish Ruben Tejada's legs did not shatter. This sounds awful that I'm laughing. Shatter in a million pieces. But if I were Chase Utley and I had to redo it again, you know what I would do? I would slide into his freaking leg 10 times harder because it's baseball, dude. You do everything you can to win the game. And that's why I personally love Chase Utley. Because say what you want about him. When he was on the field, he had one goal in mind. That was to win the baseball game. So, sure, Ruben Tejada, RIP. He's not dead. The leg might be screwed up forever. But that was a winning baseball play. But I think what me and Ryan can do one day is do a full episode on Utley versus Pedroia. So I can have all my stats in line. He can have all his stats in line, and we could really go at it. Just because we don't have enough time to just debate like all this stuff. Um, but I gave you Nomar over Jimmy. You gonna give me Chase over Dustin just to be a nice guy, or you're not gonna give me Dustin or Chase over Dustin?
That might be one of the ones where we just kind of have to agree to disagree on it. Honestly, again, I don't hate Chase Utley, but I feel like we're gonna get to a couple more of these guys, and we're just gonna be like, I don't know. Like there's an absolute obvious one that I'm going to be giving you when his name comes up, and there's another one where I'm probably gonna give it to you as well when I'm thinking about it now. But this is one of those ones where we're just gonna have to kind of agree to disagree.